Well, welcome everybody to essentially like an espresso shot of our decaf show. Unfortunately, Taylor and Mark never let me on decaf, so I've had to come up with my own program here for a bit. I'm very excited today to be joined by a good friend of mine, the mayor of Knox County, Glenn Jacobs. Mayor, you have been a stalwart on a lot of real important conservative free market issues over the years, so it's a pleasure to have you on the chat today.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate you having me on. And thanks to Beacon Center for everything that you all do as well.
Well, it's a team effort. You know, a lot of the stuff that we work on gets a lot of pushback. You know, when you're changing the status quo, you've got to fight really hard. So to have local officials and champions like you out there fighting the good fight is extremely important. Speaking of, we have a really big fight on our hands right now, an issue that's near and dear to both of our hearts, and that's school choice. You know, Beacon has long advocated for giving parents more options when it comes to their kids' education and ultimately letting them choose. Do you want to leave your kid in your zone of public school? If it's working for you, great. But if not, you should have access to charter schools and homeschool opportunities and even private schools. And Tennessee currently has a school choice program, but it's limited to Memphis, Nashville, and Chattanooga. So as the mayor of the largest county in the state where parents aren't eligible for that program, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, as a conservative, it makes me feel like I'm really behind the curve here. When you look around the country and all the momentum behind school choice and everything that's happened the past several years in other states, and the fact that Tennessee is the most conservative of the conservative states, and we're still fighting this battle. It does make me feel like not that we're losing ground, but that we're not where we should be, especially on this issue.
For sure. But fortunately, there potentially is help on the horizon when it comes to this. A lot of states are moving towards universal school choice. I think Alabama just became the 12th state in the country to give parents across the state, no matter where they live, no matter what their income is, truly empower them with parental choice. Earlier this year, Governor Lee announced in his State of the State that he wanted to bring universal school choice to Tennessee and has made that his top priority. Do you support making school choice available to every family statewide?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. The more choice that people have, that parents have, and also young people about their education, so I think that's really important. And also, anytime that we can inject competition into any sort of sector of the economy or market, that's really important. One of the issues with education is the fact that it's all controlled by the government. And when that happens, this is the predictable result. Unfortunately, the good product or good outcomes drop while the expense keeps on going up. That's not a criticism of anyone within the system, okay? I think sometimes teachers will think they're being criticized, you're not doing a good job. That's not the case. The same with administrators. We have wonderful teachers and great administrators here in Knox County. But what happens, just things like innovation doesn't happen because you have this system that's very bureaucratic. It just is. We all know that. And just the ability to say, hey, you're not doing a great job over here, or you're doing a great job, but you're not meeting the needs of my particular child. That's when we need folks to be able to say, I just need another option. And it's not just about, as you mentioned all the different options, but it's not just about public government-funded schools versus private schools. It's about those options. In my own life, I have two siblings. I have one brother, one sister. My sister was an academic superstar. She ended up working at NASA. She was a rocket scientist, got a PhD in history. Intellectually, academically, smartest person you'll ever meet. My brother was dyslexic and just had a lot of issues with classroom learning. But man, he could work with his hands like no one I've ever met. And I shouldn't, when I say that, his brain just worked in a different way than my sister's does, right? Fortunately, at the time, we grew up in Missouri. Fortunately, we had a tri-county VOTEC school. He went to study auto mechanics. Then later in his high school career, he went to live with my grandmother where there was a full-blown auto mechanics school. They're both successful, each in their own way. However, because everything is focused on kids like my sister, which, that's kind of what you have to do when you're in an academic environment. But nevertheless, because things are focused so much on people like my sister, I often wonder what would have happened to my brother if he hadn't had those opportunities. And I think what would have happened is he would have been labeled a troublemaker because, again, he's really smart, but he got bored in the classroom. and he would have started making his own fun basically. So we leave kids like that behind, and also as a society we need both. And I don't think there's anything wrong with people being allowed to tailor their education or the education of their kids.
You really make a good point. We've talked to parents across the state who had similar situations where they have 4 kids and they're all in a different learning environment because every kid learns differently, even within the same family, just like yours. And so to have this one size fits all, you only can go to your zone public school, fails to recognize that. And those public schools may be working well for the vast majority of kids. In fact, if you look at even in these universal school choice states, the vast majority of students are still going to be educated in the traditional public school system. But it may be a great school, but if your kid's getting bullied in that school, it's not serving that child, and that parent should be able to take that child and put them into a school that better meets their needs.
If I could interject just real quick, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of the pushback is coming from the public schools. You're going to lose funding, especially in your more rural areas. Well, if you look at it from a real world perspective, that's just not the case. This is not going to have huge impact, especially in rural areas, because there's just not a whole lot of private schools out in our more rural areas. And then, as you said, if you look at the statistics for where this has happened, and there's not this massive sea change. Okay, we're really talking about marginal changes here, even though the program, is really big and everything. It's not like all of a sudden you're going to lose 25% or 50% of your student population. That just won't happen.
You make a good point, too, about when we watch these debates. Currently, the legislature is debating this. And when you hear the opponents of this, you've got your education bureaucrats, you've got the teachers union and others who are fighting this. They always talk about money and systems and funding, and they don't hardly ever talk about what's best for the individual kids. And so it's great to be on the side of the kids in this. But isn't that frustrating that, the data doesn't bear out the sky is falling like they claim? But for once, if we could talk about what's best for each individual child, it's pretty hard to be against this.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I sometimes deal with the same thing here. People worry about Knox County as a corporate entity, but it's like, guys, even though, our paycheck says Knox County government, we're working for the people of Knox County. Right. And I feel that happens a lot within bureaucracies, whereas the bureaucracy almost becomes its own thing. It's like its own company. And then we forget that the actual customers are the people that we're serving. So it's not just it's true in education. It's actually true throughout government that people ended up worrying more about the institution itself than the people the institution is supposed to serve. And I don't say that as a big criticism. It's just kind of that group thing, unfortunately, kind of permeates through the organization.
It's the reality, and that's what makes it harder to do what we do when we're trying to fight against that status quo. So let's wrap up here. One last question. Again, governor's proposed universal school choice. The legislature's debating how to go about that. Some of those legislators, those policymakers are really on the fence about this because they're hearing from the teachers unions and the superintendents about the funding and about the money and frankly, what's best for the adults. What would you say to those policymakers who are wary about just truly giving parents educational freedom in this state?
Well, first of all, you have to do what's right for the kids. The system's important. I understand that. But in the end, the system is there to provide a service to the taxpayers, right? And to the kids of Tennessee. Second of all, as Republicans, I would say that you need to look at the numbers because school choice is overwhelmingly popular among Republican primary voters. And what happens is all too often we end up hearing from the people that make the most noise. We don't end up hearing from most of the people because they just don't make that much noise. So you really, you're not only are doing the right thing, but in the end, despite the fact that, often these deals feel like you're in a crucible and everybody's yelling at you and there's a lot of pressure, in the end, you're doing the popular thing as well. And in politics, look, I always try to do the right thing, even when it's not the popular thing. But man, when I can do the right thing and it's the popular thing,
it's a no-brainer, right?
It sure is.
And this is one of those issues where, as you said, the polling shows that we've polled it at Beacon through our Beacon poll, 70+% among Republican voters. It is both the popular thing to do and the right thing to do. And it's rare running a think tank that we get to say that, but this is one of those things. And we appreciate your leadership on it. Thank you for everything that you do. And hopefully next time we talk, we will be one of those states that has universal school choice for parents all across this state.
Sounds good. And thanks again, Justin. And thank you to the Beacon Center for everything that you're doing to promote this very important issue.
Thank you, Mayor. And until next time, I hope you have a great day.